It was the kind of night that should have felt romantic. Rooftop views of New Orleans, jazz humming in the background, string lights swaying in the breeze, and enough champagne to keep everyone laughing too loud. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I didn't belong there. We were at her boss's birthday party. Some swanky, invite-only thing hosted on top of the Hotel Richelieu. Hannah was glowing. Not just because of her dress, a red satin number that looked like it belonged in a magazine, but because she was on. You know the kind of energy someone gives off when they're too alive? Like they're on stage. She'd always had that spark in social settings. But tonight it was different. Sharper. Louder. Almost manic. I should have said no. I had work in the morning, and I barely knew anyone in her office outside of small talk at holiday parties. But Hannah had insisted, said it was important I be there, that people should see us together. I didn't ask what that meant. I just ironed a shirt, kissed her cheek, and told myself I was overthinking things again. The rooftop was packed. Her co-workers were the well-dressed type, all soft blazers and curated confidence. You could smell the ambition. The crowd circled around her boss, Grant, some rising star VP who looked like he hadn't had a bad day in his life. Square jaw, perfect posture, a laugh that traveled too far. Hannah introduced me to him right after we arrived. "This is Jake," she said, her hand on my chest. "My husband, the real brains behind our household." Grant flashed a smile and gave me a handshake that said, "I've already forgotten your name." "Pleasure," he said, eyes drifting back to her almost immediately. "You've got a good one here." Then came the first little twinge. Not jealousy, not exactly, more like observation. The way they stood a little too close. The way his hand lingered at her waist. The way she leaned in just slightly when she laughed at his joke about corporate marriages being easier than real ones. I let it slide. Told myself it was nothing. The night wore on. I made small talk with people I didn't know, sipping my drink and watching Hannah light up like a chandelier. She was magnetic. People gravitated toward her. She'd always been like that, even back in college. It was part of why I fell in love with her. But seeing her tonight, surrounded by all these people who clearly admired her, maybe too much, it felt like I was watching her from behind glass. Somewhere between the second and third round of drinks, the music changed. Jazz gave way to something more upbeat, and Grant took Hannah by the hand and pulled her onto the dance floor. I watched them, her heels clicking against the rooftop tiles, her arms around his neck, his hand on the small of her back. It wasn't suggestive exactly, but it wasn't professional either. It was too close, too familiar. The kind of dancing you only do when you've already crossed a line in your mind, if not in reality. A few people around me exchanged glances. One guy, someone I think worked in their finance department, raised an eyebrow at me, then quickly looked away like he regretted it. I stood there, glass sweating in my hand, and reminded myself not to jump to conclusions. I told myself it was a party. It was New Orleans. People danced. No big deal. That's when the waiter dropped the receipt. It fluttered out of his serving book like a rogue leaf in a storm, landing squarely on a high-top table near me. I wouldn't have even noticed if my name hadn't caught my eye, or rather, hers. Hannah Watson. That familiar print, sharp and bold at the top of a hotel receipt. At first, I figured it must have been a room charge. Maybe she had grabbed a suite to get ready earlier. But when I picked it up, everything in me sank. 2 guests. 1 room. Late checkout. Bottle of champagne. The receipt was dated for that night. Check-in just 2 hours before we even arrived at the party. The hotel name wasn't even where we were. It was another boutique spot, a few blocks over. Known for privacy and discretion. A few nearby guests noticed. Someone coughed awkwardly. The DJ must have felt the vibe change because the music skipped. Hannah was still dancing with Grant, her hand now casually tucked behind his neck, her fingers idly playing with the collar of his shirt. I felt cold, like everything around me blurred. I wanted to believe it was a mistake, a mix-up, someone else's paper. But my gut, the one I'd been ignoring for months, twisted hard. Then Hannah turned and saw me holding the paper. She paused mid-step. Her smile froze, Her body language stiffened just for a breath, just long enough for me to see it. But then, like flicking a switch, she was all laughter again. "Oh my God," she said as she sauntered over, grabbing the receipt from my hand. "Are we seriously doing this?" Her voice was loud enough for the people around us to hear. She waved the receipt like it was some silly mistake. "Relax," she said with a laugh, nudging me in the ribs. "This isn't mine. Or maybe it is, but it was for that client from Chicago. Remember? The one we put up at the Frenchman Hotel last week? They probably still had my info on file. You know how lazy admin can be." People chuckled politely. Grant came up behind her, still smiling, still unreadable. She turned to the small audience around us and said, "Jake's a little possessive, but I like that about him." Everyone laughed. I didn't. She leaned in close to me, whispered in my ear, "We'll talk later. Don't do this now, please." I nodded. I smiled, because what else was I supposed to do? Later that night, as we walked to the car, she looped her arm around mine like nothing had happened. Her perfume was thick, expensive, floral, dizzying. I drove in silence. She scrolled her phone in the passenger seat, occasionally tossing out comments like, "Wasn't that fun?" Or, "God, my feet are K*ling me." She never mentioned the receipt again. Neither did I. But something had changed. That was the moment, the exact moment, when I realized the person sitting next to me might not be the same woman I thought I'd married. And the worst part? She saw my suspicion, felt it, and smiled right through it, like she'd rehearsed. After the party, things didn't go back to normal. They just got quieter, a little colder, a little too perfect. Hannah was suddenly more attentive. Morning kisses that lasted a beat longer, texts during the day with heart emojis she hadn't used in years, and that bright, sugary tone in her voice when I walked through the door like she was auditioning for Wife of the Year. On the surface, it was everything I'd ever wanted from her. But underneath, it felt hollow, like she was trying to throw me off a scent. And maybe she was. I told myself it was just in my head, that I was still raw from the party and that one awkward receipt. But the more I tried to let it go, the more things didn't add up. For starters, her phone. Before, she never cared much about it. Left it lying around, open, unlocked. But now it was always face down. Always locked. Always with her. She had installed a new passcode one morning after an update and brushed off my raised eyebrow with a quick, "IT told us to change our security settings. You should too." Then there was the calendar. We used to share everything. Doctor appointments, dinner plans, even random reminders like, "Get wine for Friday." But sometime after that party, the sync stopped working. When I asked about it, she looked at me blankly and said, "Oh, I thought we turned that off. It was cluttering up my work stuff." She didn't ask me to res-hair it. I didn't push. But that was the start of it. Now, her calendar was filled with vague titles. Client check-in, evening brief, field prep. All with no locations. Just time slots blocked out like they were none of my business. I knew her schedule used to be packed with internal calls and desk time. But now, there were meetings until 8 p.m. Sometimes later. Most of them, she said, were team dinners. Late again. I'd ask when she slipped off her heels at the door, long past when normal people ate dinner. "Yeah, it's been chaos," she'd say, tossing her purse on the bench like she hadn't done anything wrong. "We're onboarding a new client, and Grant's pushing for these immersive sessions. FaceTime matters right now." Immersive. That word made my jaw tighten. Another change, her wardrobe. At first, it was subtle. A new pair of heels. A fitted blazer. But then came the evening dresses. Slinky, silky, the kind you wear when you're trying to be noticed. Stuff I'd never seen her wear around me, let alone to a business dinner. When I commented on a new dress hanging in the closet, tag still on, she just said, "Oh, that's for a formal client dinner next month. Gotta keep up appearances." "Which client?" I asked. She blinked. "Chicago. Or maybe Houston. I forget. Doesn't matter, it's just business." Business. Everything was business now, including the growing stack of cash withdrawals I noticed in our shared bank account. Odd, because Hannah hated using cash. She said it felt trashy and preferred everything to be digital. But lately it was ATM after ATM. 70 here, 80 there. Once, for 100, taken out just 2 days before her team offsite. Why cash? I asked one evening as we sorted through receipts. She didn't look up. Tips, parking, incidentals. You're the one who always says hotels nickel and dime everything. That was true. I had said that, but the way she jumped to answer made it feel rehearsed, like she'd prepped for that line. I started watching more closely. The receipts in her purse were always from nice places, wine bars, rooftop lounges, upscale seafood joints with names I didn't recognize, all located in parts of town far from her company's headquarters. Places with hotel clusters nearby. She started coming home later, always claimed traffic, or late meetings, or Grant pulling one of his surprise brainstorms again. Every time she walked through the door, she made a beeline for the bathroom. No hug, no kiss, no, how was your day? Just straight to the shower. It became a pattern. Same thing every time. Purse down, shoes off, shower running. I told myself maybe she just needed to decompress. Maybe the city grime got to her. But when I sat in the bedroom listening to the water run, sometimes for 15-20 minutes, I couldn't help but wonder if she was scrubbing off more than traffic dust. Then there was her scent. Her perfume had changed. She used to wear this clean, airy floral one, the kind that lingered gently, like spring. But lately there was something heavier, muskier, something I didn't recognize. One night I caught a whiff of cologne. Not hers, not mine. And when I asked, she said it must have been from someone at work. We had a working lunch. You know how those boardroom chairs get shared, right? Shared chairs. Every piece by itself could be explained away. That's what I told myself over and over. That I was being paranoid. That I was jealous. That I was building a story out of shadows. But the shadows kept stacking. One night, I tried to be playful about it. "Hey," I said, as we sat on the couch and she scrolled through her phone. "You and Grant ever gonna give me a run for my money?" She looked up, slow, eyes flat. "What's that supposed to mean?" "I'm joking," I said quickly. You guys seem close." She snorted. "Oh my God, is that what this is? You're jealous? Because I have a good working relationship?" I held my hands up. "I'm not accusing, just saying you two were pretty in sync at the party." She stared at me, cold now. "That's how people climb, Jake. Relationships, influence. That's what leadership looks like. Don't make it weird." Then she stood up, muttered something about forgetting to switch the laundry, and left the room. The conversation never came back. That's when it hit me. She wasn't trying to explain. She was trying to shut it down. Her strategy was simple. Flip the script. Make me the insecure husband. The one who can't handle his wife being successful. She knew exactly how to frame it. She was brilliant at that, turning discomfort into comedy, doubt into dismissal. I began noticing little contradictions. One night she said she had a late dinner in the Garden District. I saw a parking meter receipt in her bag the next morning, from the Warehouse District. She claimed to be in back-to-back calls on a Friday, yet a location tag popped up on one of her Instagram stories, showing her at a rooftop bar. Midday, cocktail in hand, laughing with a group of people who didn't look like coworkers. I ***ed it, saved it quietly. I wasn't confronting her yet, but I was collecting, because part of me, the part one hated, had already started preparing for what I might eventually have to face. Still, I wasn't ready to say it out loud. Not to myself. Not to her. Not yet. I just kept watching. Kept pretending. Every night, I'd hear her come home, keys jangling in the lock, and I'd brace myself. For the silence. For the shower. For the lies wrapped in soft kisses and late dinners. And I'd wonder, was this the beginning of the end? Or had that already started, and I was just catching up? It was a Tuesday night when everything shifted from suspicion to certainty. No more guesswork. No more theories or gut feelings. Just hard, cold proof staring me in the face like it had been there the whole time, waiting. I was sitting in the living room, scrolling through my email, half listening to some documentary playing in the background. Hannah was out again. Client dinner, she'd said. Another vague explanation with just enough detail to seem plausible. Same pattern. Dressed too sharp, heels too high, perfume a little too strong. I didn't even ask who she was meeting anymore. I already knew what the answer would be. Grant and the team. Around 10 o'clock, my phone buzzed with a notification from the doorbell camera. Motion detected at the front door. I figured it was her finally coming home, but the live feed didn't open right away. The app glitched sometimes. I shrugged it off and went back to my inbox. About 15 minutes later, I remembered to check the recording. I pulled it up, expecting to see her walking up with that slightly tipsy sway she always had after wine. What I saw instead made my blood freeze. The camera caught her stepping out of a taxi, laughing. She looked radiant. Hair down, cheeks flushed, that red dress from the party reappearing like a ghost. She walked around to the driver's side window and leaned in. And then, she kissed him. But it wasn't just a kiss. It was slow, lingering, and mate in a way that made my stomach turn. Her hand rested on his chest as she leaned through the open window. His hand touched hers just briefly before she pulled away. The driver wasn't a driver. It was Grant. There was no mistaking his face, even in the low light. The same self-satisfied smirk. The tailored shirt with the top button undone. The same man who had danced with her like I didn't exist. She lingered for a second, smiled, and walked toward the front door, completely unaware she was being watched. I watched that video a dozen times, every time hoping I'd missed something, some detail that would change what I saw. But it was what it was. A kiss. Long, familiar, undeniable. I didn't say anything that night. I didn't even tell her I'd seen it. She came in, made some small comment about traffic, kissed me on the cheek, and headed straight for the shower. Again. As if washing off whatever she didn't want me to smell. As if that kiss had been nothing more than a warm-up. I sat on the couch, phone still in my hand, staring at the paused frame of her leaning into his car window, lips inches from his. The next day, I woke up feeling hollow. She was already gone, having left early for a client prep breakfast. I barely remembered falling asleep. I felt like I'd aged 5 years overnight. I didn't go into work. I told my manager I needed a personal day. Spent most of the morning walking circles around the kitchen, replaying the moment over and over. Still, I hadn't confronted her. I don't know why. Maybe I needed more. Maybe I wanted to catch her in a net of her own lies. Or maybe I just wasn't ready to say the words. That evening, like some twisted blessing from the universe, a video surfaced on social media. A short, grainy clip someone had posted from the party weeks ago. The rooftop birthday. A coworker of hers had shared it with a caption like, "That was one wild night, wineglass bottle with popping cork face with tears of joy #team goals." I clicked it, not expecting anything. But as the video played, I felt my jaw lock. In the background, just behind a crowd of people toasting near the bar, I saw them. Hannah and Grant. They weren't dancing. They weren't mingling. They were slipping into a side corridor, barely visible through the open service door. No one noticed, or maybe no one cared. But I saw it. The timestamp showed it happened about 15 minutes before the hotel receipt fell from that waiter's tray. The video cut off before they returned, but the next few photos posted on the same story told the rest. Group *TS. Champagne toasts. And there they were again, rejoining the crowd. Her hair slightly mussed, lipstick faded, and Grant's shirt untucked just enough to be noticeable. Everything she had insisted was harmless suddenly felt anything but. I saved the video, downloaded it, backed it up. Then I sat at the kitchen table, phone screen still glowing, and stared at the still image of them disappearing behind that door. She had lied. Repeatedly. Blatantly. *fully. And I had believed her because I wanted to, because the alternative felt too big to accept. That night I didn't eat dinner. I just waited. She came home later than usual, blaming client delays and last-minute revisions. She looked exhausted, theatrically so, like someone playing the part of an overworked executive. She went through her routine again. Shoes off, purse down, straight to the bathroom. I heard the water run. Again. I didn't say a word. When she came out, towel around her shoulders, damp hair hanging loose, she kissed my forehead and said, "Sorry I've been so distant lately. Work's just been insane." I nodded, said nothing. She paused, as if waiting for me to ask something. Anything. I didn't. She left the room. Later, she fell asleep next to me like nothing was wrong, like we were still that couple who laughed in bed and made brunch plans on Saturdays. But I didn't sleep. I lay there staring at the ceiling, thinking about the man I'd become. The version of me she thought would never know, never suspect, and maybe for a while she was right, but not anymore. The next morning, before she left, she kissed me on the cheek and said, "Love you." I didn't answer. She didn't seem to notice. After the door shut behind her, I sat on the edge of the bed and pulled up the video again. The kiss at the car, the service corridor at the party, the subtle dishevelment afterward. It was all there. All the proof I'd been needing. No more wondering. No more hoping I was wrong. She wasn't just drifting. She was gone. After seeing the kiss, after watching her disappear into that corridor at the party, I knew what I was looking at. I had crossed that invisible line from suspicion into certainty. But certainty doesn't come with comfort. It doesn't hand you peace. It just leaves you standing there with 1,000 pieces of your life scattered at your feet and no idea which ones to pick up first. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Instead, I did what she didn't expect. I got quiet. I got methodical. I got serious. That next morning, I sat at the dining table with a legal pad and started writing down everything I could remember. Every time she'd mentioned being out with Grant, every calendar entry that didn't make sense, every strange purchase, every client dinner that went beyond dinner hours. I jotted down locations, dates, excuses. I didn't know what I was building yet, only that it needed to be built. After that, I turned to our bank accounts. Most of our stuff was joint checking, savings, a shared credit card for groceries and bills. Hannah had her own business account, too, but even that occasionally leaked into our shared finances. And that's where I found them. Recurring charges. Same hotels. Same chain. Same 2 or 3 spots scattered around the city. They weren't the fancy ones either, not the 5-star rooftop kind. These were low-profile, tucked between office buildings and boutiques. Quiet. Unassuming. Perfect for people who didn't want to be seen. The first charge was from 3 months ago. A Tuesday night she claimed she was stuck at a quarterly planning meeting. Another from the weekend she said she was traveling for a Women in Tech conference in Atlanta. I remember dropping her off at the airport, watching her disappear through security with a roller bag and a long hug that, now, makes me sick. But the charge from that weekend? It wasn't from Atlanta. It was from here, a town. A boutique hotel 10 miles from our house. The timestamp matched the same night she texted me from the conference, saying she was going to bed early after a long day of panels. I stared at that line item like it could explain itself if I just looked hard enough. Then I checked her car. I never snooped before. I never had to. But that afternoon, while she was at another off-site dinner, I went out to the garage and popped the trunk. There, tucked behind a folded yoga mat and an old grocery tote, was a small white envelope. I almost didn't open it, but curiosity, or maybe pain, pushed me over the edge. Inside was a printed hotel receipt. Room 412. Same chain. Same address. Same date as one of the team retreats she'd mentioned a month ago. 2 nights. King bed. Late checkout. In-room dining. 2 entrees, 2 drinks, and a slice of cheesecake. It was in her name. No mention of Grant, but it didn't need to. I already knew. I took a picture of it and put it back exactly where I found it. After that, I pulled her old tablet out of the drawer in the guest room. One she hadn't touched in over a year. She used to use it for presentations, work stuff. It had been sitting there collecting dust, uncharged, forgotten. Or so I thought. I plugged it in and waited. Eventually, it lit up. Same passcode as before. She hadn't changed it. What I found made my chest tighten. She'd set up a synced backup months ago. Her texts, notes, Even screensh *ts automatically saved to the cloud. Some were innocent pictures of wine labels, to-do lists, screensh *ts of calendar invites. But then came the rest. A folder titled Notes. Inside were messages from Grant. Not texts, but fragments copied and pasted into notes. Hotel room numbers, parking garage codes, times, meeting excuses. One even read, "If Jake asks, say it was the team offsite. I'll cover from my side too." There were others short, coded lines like, "Same spot as last time. Don't forget to use the service elevator." Or, "Do you think he suspects anything?" Another one stopped me cold. "It's hard keeping both lives straight sometimes, but worth it, at least for now." For now. I sat there in the dark room, the screen glowing cold in my hands, reading words that stripped away every last sliver of doubt I had left. This wasn't emotional confusion. This wasn't a mistake. This was an operation, carefully crafted, mutually managed, strategically maintained. They weren't just hiding what they were doing, they were planning for how to sustain it. I started collecting, quietly, every receipt, every message, every screen capture. I created a folder on an external drive and password protected it. I emailed myself encrypted backups, just in case. I didn't know if I was preparing for a confrontation or something else, but I knew I needed to be ready. Still, I didn't say a word to Hannah. She came home the next night and kissed me softly, like nothing had changed. Made dinner, asked about my day, laughed a little too hard at a show we were watching, even held my hand when we walked up the stairs. I played along, smiled at the right moments, said, "I love you," when she whispered it against my shoulder before falling asleep. But in my head, I wasn't in that bedroom anymore. I was in a hotel parking garage watching her type in a code. I was in a side corridor at her boss's birthday, watching a door close behind her. I was watching the footage of her leaning into his car and kissing him like I didn't exist. It's surreal. How you can share a bed with someone you don't recognize. How their breathing, their scent, their rhythm can all be so familiar, and yet feel like a stranger's. The next morning, she made me coffee. She was humming. I took the mug, kissed her cheek, and said thank you. Then I walked into my office, shut the door, and added more to the folder. At work, I started doing research, legal forums, digital privacy laws, the process for gathering evidence in a divorce. What's admissible? What isn't? I wasn't committing to anything yet. Just reading. That weekend, I bought a burner phone and used it to send myself encrypted links to all the files, just in case something happened to my main account. I didn't tell anyone. Not friends. Not family. Not even my brother, who I usually confide everything to. It wasn't time yet. I needed more. One night, I noticed Hannah texting after midnight. She was curled away from me, phone barely glowing, her thumb tapping slowly, deliberately. I closed my eyes, counted to 10, pretended I didn't hear the buzz when the reply came. She set the phone face down. The next morning, she was all smiles again. Made pancakes, played a Spotify playlist we used to listen to when we were first dating. She even suggested we take a weekend trip together to reset. I told her that sounded nice. Then I went upstairs and added a note to my log. Saturday, 7:48 a.m. Suggests trip. Sudden shift in behavior. Possibly feeling guilt. Possibly covering tracks. I wasn't guessing anymore. I was documenting. She thought I was still in the dark. But every day her act got thinner. And every night my folder got thicker. There's a difference between someone cheating and someone building a life without you. A full, living thing. Something designed in secret while they smile across the dinner table and ask if you remembered to pick up almond milk. I didn't fully grasp that difference until I found the cloud drive. It happened one night when Hannah left her laptop open in the kitchen. She'd run upstairs mid-call, saying something about a scheduling mix-up. I glanced at the screen, not planning to snoop. But a notification popped up. A shared document edit. The title read, Houston Draft LLC Articles Version 4. Houston. I clicked it. What I found was a folder of files. Dozens of them. Contracts. Financial planning spreadsheets. Branding mock-ups. It didn't look like work, at least not the kind her current company would be involved with. The language was all about ownership, investors, equity shares. One file in particular made my breath catch. Co-founder vision statement. HW/GD. HW. Hannah Watson. Grant Davis. I sat down and opened the folder fully. Page after page of details. Plans for a boutique wine bar of all things. Upscale but approachable. Designed for the modern urban professional. Their words, not mine. There was a proposed location in Houston's Montrose district, lease drafts, licensing notes, even initial logo concepts. One note read, weekend trip, check on build-out progress, meet with designer. Flights booked under initials only. HG. I checked the timestamps. All recent. All updated within the last few weeks. This wasn't a dream. This wasn't a someday fantasy or pitch deck to impress a venture firm. They were doing it. Building a business. Setting up an entire future together. I opened another file and found flight itineraries. PDF downloads. One showed 2 round-trip tickets to Chicago, leaving next month. She had told me it was a professional development seminar. The file said otherwise, 2 passengers, same flight, same hotel, same return date. The reservation was under Watson plus Davis Consulting. That name didn't exist anywhere else. Not on LinkedIn. Not on her company site. But it existed there, in that quiet little corner of cloud storage, where she never thought I'd look. It hit me, then, harder than anything else. This wasn't about just sneaking around for thrills. This was architecture. Strategy. A second life built alongside mine, not intersecting with it. No plans to tell me. No talk of divorce. Just preparation. The wine bar lease was set to start in November. Her seminar in Chicago was scheduled for 2 weeks before that. And suddenly, everything clicked. The fake late nights. The new wardrobe. The cash withdrawals. The sudden friendliness. The vacation to reset. It was camouflage. A distraction to keep me calm while she got her exit lined up. And I'd fallen for it. That weekend, I watched her cook breakfast like she always did. Sunnyside eggs, toast, fresh fruit, jazz on the speaker. Her movements were easy, comfortable, domestic, but her phone kept buzzing. Every few minutes, she'd glance down, smirk slightly, and turn it face down again. She offered me the seat at the head of the table, something she never used to do, and said, "You've been working so hard lately. Let me take care of things today." It was sweet in theory, but now I saw it for what it was. The guilty grace of someone saying goodbye in slow motion. I excused myself and went upstairs. Opened my notes app. Logged everything. Then I opened the backup of the cloud folder and scrolled through it again. One message stood out. It wasn't a document. It was a saved draft email never sent. Addressed to herself, probably just for safekeeping. The subject line, timeline if, when. It was short, bullet points. Wrap up work by Q4. Houston move post-launch. Chicago trip final test. Wait for lease finalization before reset convo. Separate accounts by end of year. I stared at the words reset convo. That's what she was planning. She was going to take me on a trip, sit me down with some therapeutic language about growth and transition and how we've changed. And then she'd frame it as some mutual decision. She'd already packed her escape plan into a business model, down to the month. And what was I doing? Still trying to fix us. Still looking at couples retreats online. Still wondering if I was just being paranoid. I felt sick. The woman I kissed every morning had been drafting blueprints for a future I didn't even exist in. I couldn't unsee it. That night, she asked if I wanted to watch a movie. Something light, nostalgic. We sat on the couch, a blanket between us. She laughed at all the right moments, leaned her head on my shoulder, and whispered, "I'm glad we're doing better." I nodded. But inside, something had shifted. I didn't feel pain anymore, or even rage. Just vacancy. I was sitting next to an actress, and I'd just read her script. The next morning, I checked her GPS history, a feature I'd never cared about before. Buried in her account, It showed everywhere she'd been for the past few months. Most of it lined up: work, groceries, occasional salon visits. But then there it was. The property address from the lease document. She'd been there twice. Once with a location tagged in a note that read, "Bar layout, entry wall idea." I added it to the evidence folder. Gave it a new subdirectory, Houston Project. Later, I went for a drive. Not to the lease site, not yet. I needed space. I drove aimlessly, watching the city blur past. I saw couples walking dogs. People sitting at coffee shops. A young dad chasing his toddler through a park. All of them probably believing in the solidity of their lives. That the people they loved were who they said they were. I envied them. I went home and poured a drink. Just one. Then I opened a blank document. I titled it, "The Truth I Can Prove," and I started to write. Not emotionally. Not like a journal. Just facts. Chronology. Receipts. **TS. Files. Video. Flight logs. Everything. Because I knew what was coming next. She would start phase 2 soon, the performance of reconnection. More affection. More talk about our future. The groundwork for a gentle exit. But I wouldn't let her write the ending. Not alone. She cooked breakfast, offered a weekend trip to reconnect, smiled like nothing was wrong. I smiled back, playing my part. Meanwhile, I gathered everything: receipts, **TS, videos, backups. I opened a new bank account, encrypted files, and met with a lawyer. She thought we were healing. I was just preparing. Quietly, deliberately. Every move was made with purpose. I wasn't waiting to catch her anymore. I was getting ready to leave first. An anonymous report landed in her company's compliance inbox, confirming an affair between a manager and subordinate. Documents matched everything I had. Her lies collapsed under their own weight. That harmless dance had always been more. I wasn't married to a wife. I was watching an actress perform a role she'd long since abandoned. Now, with every fact in hand, it was my turn to choose the ending. And I would, quietly, on my own terms,